in autumn. Sheen lowers thousands of bulbs into the soil. The winter, nothing goes above ground. Green shoots, then spring arrive at the surface. Flower and the bulb are competing for the same stored energy, and within weeks, the first color appears. Matters more. And on a commercial bulb field, the grower has already decided which one is where the two futures split. The majority of Dutch tulip acreage on a field grown purely to multiply bulbs. Left alone, flower is treated as a liability, not a product. A blooming tulip directs more of its stored resources toward reproduction, enlarging the bulb. As soon as the bud shows enough color to confirm the variety is correct. So the grower doesn't wait for a color he personally finds prettier. No mixed colors slipped in, no disease. Chasing the flower away and leaving the leaves untouched. Sheen tops the entire row in one pass. More of that energy can now go into enlarging the bulb. The leaves keep photosynthesizing for weeks afterward, instead of supporting a flower and seeds nobody will ever use. The timing of that pass matters more than the machine that does it. A wrongly colored tulip mixed into the wrong row too early, and the variety can't be confirmed by eye. The batch's certification. Too late, plant has already spent energy the bulb needed, making sure the plants are at the right stage, and the variety is. The grower checks the rows himself before the topping machine ever starts to type. Pale, then yellow, then flat against the soil. By early summer, the leaves die back on their own. Only then does the real harvest happen, and it isn't a cut at all, it's a lift. Continuous pass, shaking the loose soil free as it goes. A machine works just beneath the surface, easing thousands of bulbs up out of the ground in one washed, dried for days under forced air before they're sorted into crates by grade, and passed beneath a scanner that checks every single one for size and firmness. Some are sold whole, straight to garden centers and export packers. Others are held back entirely, because the bulb business and the cut flower business begin with the same plant, but from here, their paths diverge. Then pinned upright into trays, by the thousand, selected bulbs are handed off before they're ever planted outside at all, sorted a second time by hand at a packing bench, and wheeled into a room kept completely dark and artificially cold. Nothing changes color in there, nothing is meant to, sometimes for months at a time. A tulip bulb won't flower on command, by a lot, so the room manufactures one. Precisely, it needs to believe it has already lived through a winter first, for as long as it takes to convince the bulb that spring is coming. The cooling period is measured in weeks, often somewhere around 12 to 6. That belief isn't casual, and it isn't guesswork. Cut that treatment short, and the flowers can emerge stunted, uneven, or fail to open at all. There's no fixing it later, depending on the variety and the schedule. Whatever happens inside that dark room is locked in long before a green shoot appears above the tray. And the change is almost immediate. Warmth is the trigger the bulb has been waiting for. Once that cold treatment is complete, the trays move into a heated glass. Within days, pale stems push upward, row after row. No color yet, just growth. Until the entire glasshouse floor disappears under a solid canopy of green. because every bulb in the room receives the same carefully controlled cold treatment. First, a thin seam of red or yellow at the very tip of a cloth. Then, finally, color arrives. Not all at once, but barely visible against the green. Within a day or two, by the time the buds are half open, a glass house that was solid green begin peeling back from that tip, spreading color down toward the stem. Earlier has become a sheet of red, pink, and white, repeating in rows as far as a camera can see. It's also the shortest, because from here, the clock is it's the most photogenic moment in the entire running out. Growers cut it early, often well under half. The flower is harvested before it has fully opened. The stem lengthens, the petals keep tuned, because a tulip keeps growing after it's been cut. Furling, right up until the moment it wilts. At this stage, timing matters more than wait too long, and the flower is already past its best before it ever leaves the building. To lose the uniformity the market is paying for. A single machine moves down the rows. Leave the flowers too long, and the crop pulls each stem free and slices it away from the bulb in one motion. The bulb drops behind and stays there. It has already spent nearly everything it had, forcing the flower continues forward on the belt. One flush of growth out of season. And depending on the system, it usually has lower and grade. Faster and more consistently, commercial value left after that. From here, automated systems sort the stems by length than sorting by hand ever could, with workers checking the line for anything machines miss. What remains that by machine into bunches of 10 to 20 stems, for length and shade, bound in under a second. Every bunch that leaves this thing that didn't looks identical to the one before it, not because nature made them that way, but because the machine already rejected. Here is the number that surprises most people who assume every Dutch flower passes through the country's famous its way to market. Most of them don't. And close to 80% of them do it at industrial scale. Across the country, roughly 200 operations run this chain, growing tulips hydroponically, indoors, on a fixed schedule instead of a season. Combined, they produce something in the range of 3.5 billion cut tulip stems a year. Royal Flora Holland handles fewer than 1 billion of them each year. At this scale, the real product is no longer a flower, it's certainty. The right number of stems, most move directly from grower to retailer under fixed contracts instead. Right length, on the right day. None of this is new. Tulips aren't originally Dutch at all. First cultivated more than 1,000 years ago in Central Asia, then prized for centuries. The flower didn't reach the Ottoman Empire, where sultans wore them on their turbans. The Netherlands until the late 1500s, carried there by the botanist Carolus, planting a university garden in Leiden. Within decades, the Dutch had turned it into a financial movement. At the height of tulip mania, rare bulbs commanded prices reaching thousands of guilders. Before the market collapsed in 1630s, and a country's conviction that this flower was worth an entire industry. 7. What didn't collapse was the fields. The expert, which is the part of this that's easy to lose sight of, it is really about the flower. It never was. Standing in front of a field this beautiful. This particular row was built to sacrifice from the moment it was planted. It's about the bulb underneath it, and about which one of the two, flower or bulb. Each finished bunch is indistinguishable from the next by design. Somewhere in that chain, labeled and boxed. One shipment among billions is another field where flowers were sacrificed weeks early, so the bulbs beneath them could become the starting material for flowers like this one. It has already lived a stranger life than it looked. By the time one of these tulips sits in a vase on a table, cut before it was ever finished opening, grown to be looked at for less than 2 weeks, survived on its own past this point anyway. For exactly this fate, specifically because it could cut down before a single flower gets to open. Somewhere else right now, an identical field is being topped. This one simply got picked to survive a little longer.